Hi, everyone. Alexandria Hoff here in Washington. I just wrapped up a hit I did for Faulkner Focus. It's probably going to be my last live shot of the day. I had an early start this morning, but we've been wrapping up the Supreme Court's arguments that were heard yesterday. I mean, these two monumental cases out of West Virginia and Idaho that are poised to impact the future of women's sports, of female sports more specifically. And right now, as we were going back over listening to all of the questioning that the justices had yesterday for the plaintiffs and their attorneys, it appears that a majority of the court will likely side with the two states and uphold their bans on male participation in female sports. Those were overturned back at the state level, so that's why they're at the Supreme Court now, and they are two separate cases. But the overall theme that we really got from this questioning yesterday was whether gender identity applies to laws prohibiting sex-based discrimination. That specifically really lends itself to Title IX. So that was a lot of the conversation. Where does gender identity, if at all, play into sex-based protections? So the states argued that it doesn't apply at all, that biological sex would be the only relevant factor that would protect female spaces, specifically sports. The questioning got really technical at times from the justices, and you could kind of see, especially on the liberal side, a little bit of perhaps hostility to the argument that biological sex determines womanhood. But then at one point, I think the standout moment might have been when Justice Alito was speaking with the attorney for the plaintiff in the Idaho case. This is an ACLU attorney, and asked, how do you define sex? What does it mean to be a boy or girl, man or woman? And that attorney said that they don't have a definition that they could provide the court. That, to Alito, felt like it was absent of something required when trying to determine what sex-based protections mean and who it applies to, equal protection as well. So it did get quite in the weeds. There's a whole lot of nuance to this. You could look at it from 30,000 feet and say, okay, women's sports were protected under Title IX for women only. So there you have it. Maybe there shouldn't be transgender males playing. But when you get into it, I mean, the justices took on questions like, well, what about when transgender youth sports players, so a biological male who identifies as a female and wants to participate in a girl's sport, what happens when they take puberty blockers? What happens when they're on cross-sex hormones? Does that impact the biological advantage that they might have over a female opponent? There were questions as well about, even without the medication, do boys or young men, do they possess a physical advantage over women? Because there's been some studies recently really circulating among the pro-transgender community that say, hey, actually maybe there's not that big of a gap between male and female achievement. But then on the other side, you have those who say, we have seen the podiums and the biological males identifying as females standing in the center with that gold medal on and seeing the difference between them and the women who are standing at their side. So the anecdotal evidence, that many would argue, is there. Now, we, again, are not going to get a answer on what the court decides for several months, probably early summer by the time that comes. But it does look like a majority are going to say these states can govern these sports in a way that they feel protects female athletes. There was something, I think it was Justice Kavanaugh, who indicated that maybe this ruling would be narrow, right? That means that it wouldn't be one that would be sweeping, applying to all 50 states and all different kind of transgender policies. He made the point that maybe this could be something very specific to sports. That's definitely a possibility here. But they're going to continue to weigh this, and some are curious of what way that these justices will go. Will this be a divided 6-3 decision? Could there be a female justice on the liberal side who says, hey, you know what? I've heard from friends and family. I can see the practical application of this. So could there be a break there? Possibly. There are some who think that this will be a 9-0 ruling. That is probably unlikely. But when you look at public polling on this issue of biological men and female sports, it's an 80-20 issue. But I mean, those are the people who are answering the polls. When I was out there at the Supreme Court yesterday, Riley Gaines was actually on our air. So she was standing next to me. She was finishing up a live shot. As you know, she's a champion of this cause of protecting female sports for females only. And there were unrelated young women on jogs, you know, taking runs down by the Supreme Court. They were not there for this spectacle, did not really even maybe know what was happening. But they called out her name. We're taking pictures. There's Riley, there's Riley. So something in those social interactions tells me that among female athletes, this is a 99% favorability towards keeping female spaces. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the Supreme Court goes with this. They could also just send it back to the states, essentially, saying this is up for states to decide. We're not going to give a sweeping ruling, but it has divided people. It certainly has, at least online in some of those more hostile spaces where people are more willing to be candid. Yeah, so we appreciated seeing where these states stand, what the future might hold, but lots of questions on what the Supreme Court will do. I appreciate everybody who watched us yesterday as we were out there in the cold. Lots of demonstrators out there as well, kind of dueling demonstrations, but it was all peaceful. And a lot of people just looking ahead to early spring when we're likely to get a ruling on these two cases. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'm Alexandria Hoff. I'm probably going to call it a day. Got up at 3 in the morning, so I will see you guys soon.